Today, this subcommittee continues its oversight of WMATA. I say continues because this is an issue that Ranking Member Meadows championed when he was chairman of the subcommittee. Mr. Meadows convened hearings on WMATA in the wake of Carol Glover's tragic death in the L'Enfant Plaza tunnel fire, after the East Falls Church derailment, and amidst crises in system leadership, safety, and customer confidence. Mr. Meadows put the spotlight of this subcommittee on WMATA against a backdrop of seemingly daily track fires and when all the lights were blinking red. I want to thank Mr. Meadows and my colleagues on the other side of the aisle for their bipartisan concern and commitment to making it better. Together, we've been supportive of General Manager Paul Wiedefeld's reforms to the system, including his efforts to place a premium on safety and to combat a culture of mediocrity by holding bad actors accountable and demanding better service to customers. Mr. Wiedefeld implemented the Safe Track Blitz on safety improvements, led the effort to secure expanded maintenance hours, terminated track inspectors who falsified track inspection reports, and has increased annual capital investments. Some of these initiatives have not been popular, but these improvements coincide with increases in on-time performance, customer service ratings, and ridership, trends we must strive to continue. Despite improvements, areas of concern, including a recent train collision, remain. These lingering problems demand continued attention. The newly certified Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission was on the scene of a train collision near Farragut West earlier this month. Congress was instrumental in establishing this new safety oversight body, and I was glad to help in leading that effort with Majority Leader Hoyer and others. I believe Barbara Mikulski played a key role in that, the senator at the time from Maryland. And of course, the delegate, our colleague Eleanor Holmes Norton from Washington as well. WMATA is expected to take possession of the 23-mile Silver Line extension of Metro to Washington Dulles International Airport in late 2020. The OIG, the Office of Inspector General, however, released 2 management alerts raising concerns about construction deficiencies on the project and warning of the extraordinary cost, maintenance, and operational issues that would arise if those concerns were not properly addressed. We cannot allow shoddy construction work by cost-cutting contractors to saddle Metro and its ridership with long-term costly maintenance problems. I know we're eager to hear how that's being resolved. And that's not WMATA's problem yet, but it's a problem unaddressed we otherwise inherit. Finally, WMATA recently underwent immense upheaval on its governing board. Former board chairman Jack Evans violated the public trust as well as the WMATA Board Code of Ethics and has become a walking billboard for the ethically challenged. Mr. Meadows and I, and Mr. Jordan, have acute concerns about the damage done by Mr. Evans and the board's mishandling of the ethics complaints. The opacity of the ethics committee process and Mr. Evans' actions to threaten and intimidate WMATA staff, including the general counsel who was investigating his ethical behavior, did not inspire public confidence in the board. We hope our witnesses can help the subcommittee and the public understand how new ethics reforms address these lapses so that they will not be allowed to recur. I believe the ranking member and I both appreciate how essential WMATA is to the operation of the federal government. In recognition of the special responsibility the federal government has to help America's subway, my Republican predecessor and former chairman of this committee, Tom Davis, led the effort to secure dedicated federal funding for WMATA. It was a Republican idea. And I do appreciate that this year's budget request upholds this bipartisan, long-standing funding commitment. It is not often I find myself praising anything in the Trump budget, but in this one case, I do. They provided full funding for what we call PRIA. The Passenger Rail Investment and Improvement Act of 2008 established the successful federal, state, and local partnership under which the federal government provides $150 million a year in capital funding, which is matched dollar for dollar by the 3 local compact members, Maryland, D.C., and Virginia. Without continued federal participation, however, This successful capital funding stream would unravel, leaving a massive shortfall in WMATA's budget and paralyzing this critical transit system. That's why I and other members of the D.C. area delegation, in fact, all of the other members of the D.C. delegation, introduced the Metro Accountability and Investment Act, or MIA. The bill would authorize the $150 million in annual capital funding for 10 more years, contingent on the local jurisdictions bringing in matching dollars. But in addition to that capital funding, the federal government would, for the first time, provide $50 million a year for WMATA's annual operating costs, $10 million of which would be provided to the Office of Inspector General for its functions. This is important because the federal government, in one way, is a free rider. We do not subsidize the operations of Metro. The compact members do. And we're, in fact, the only compact member of the federal government that does not pay a subsidy for operations. And this would begin a down payment on the federal government actually being a full partner at the table. The $200 million in annual capital and operating funding authorized by MIA would be conditional upon reforms that strengthen WMATA oversight. For example, Metro would be required to provide the Inspector General with independent budget, procurement, and hiring authorities, make independent legal advice available to the OIG, and improve transparency of corrective actions. The OIG in any organization has to be pure as the driven snow, and the reforms outlined in MIA would help ensure that the work of the IG is above reproach and independent of the transit system it oversees. It would also authorize a second tranche of dedicated federal capital funding subject to certain additional conditions, including safety and reliability certifications and improvements. Additionally, the bill would require local jurisdictions to keep their promises to escalate their contributions to WMATA capital costs. We should expect the federal government to take commensurate steps while WMATA continues to improve system performance. We cannot afford a death spiral of disinvestment and declining service for a transit system that gets our federal workforce to work every day and that serves the tens of millions of Americans and non-Americans who come to visit the nation's capital every year. We must use an incentive approach to invest in this essential transit system and hold the system accountable to providing safer and more reliable service. This subcommittee will continue to provide strict oversight of WMATA, and I want to thank again my ranking member, Mr. Meadows, and his stand-in, Mr. Gothman, for their support on a bipartisan basis.